The inherent demand for what we do at Burns & Mac is growing almost exponentially. If you look at the environment, if you look at the areas of power and energy and water, the nation's defense, things look very good. I think we'll grow at the rate we choose. We need new grads. We need kids coming out of the local engineering programs, out of the local construction management programs, and even out of the local design programs who are ready to go to work. There's nowhere to find those better than right here in the Midwest. The state of Missouri, the local states are not producing enough engineers. America needs more engineering students. We need more design students. We need more science and energy students. We need more construction engineering and construction management students. Now this year we're going to hire 150 new college graduate engineering students alone into our firm, and about 100 of those right here in Kansas City. What we found is best for our firm, best for our town, is if we can get them local. So from the surrounding Big 12 schools, from UMKC, from Rolla, especially the places where they think of Kansas City as home already. In terms of higher education, the first thing that the state could do is fully fund higher education. These kids need to be ready to compete on day one. Missouri's not behind, but it is not ahead either. And if a kid's not ready, if they're not ready either from a talent point of view or from an understanding how hard it is to work here point of view, it's very costly. It's easily a year's salary. It's easily all the time that it took to recruit them and bring here. And engineers have big signing bonuses and moving expenses, et cetera, et cetera. Not to mention, I lose that spot for a whole year. I have to wait probably until the next May to find that next kid who can fill that spot. So I need the state to do its part. I need those institutions to do their part. We're ready for them when they get here. This is the most important investment in the future of our state of Missouri. It's the one investment we absolutely have to make. The quality of a town is the economic development and vitality of a town. It does take that intellectual capacity in your town to make it great, in my opinion. And one of the best ways to do that is to have the world's best higher education society in your town. I think government needs a heck of a lot more fiscal discipline. But I'll tell you the first thing I wouldn't cut, and that's the investment in the future of the economy. They're the ones who are going to create the next tax base to pay for all this stuff. And I think it's gotten too easy to cut higher education because they don't necessarily see that impact immediately. It just looks like a simple budget cut on the spreadsheet, but I think the long-term impacts are really going to be grave. Well, we're creating other debt. It might not be state debt today, but we're creating other debt. We're creating student debt. We're creating parent debt. We're creating, the ability of those schools to meet their obligations, and those aren't any better for the state than the state figuring out something else it needs to cut. Boy, is it easy to sit here and say cut something else, but they need to cut something else. So CEOs have to get engaged. They have to tell the people who are in power to affect that spreadsheet, to tell them this has to come first. The way the rest of the world looks at corporate planning on a 25-year basis, on a 50-year basis, there's nothing more important than the quality of the future workforce. And the quality of the future workforce is 10 years old. I think we have to get very engaged politically to make sure that the people who run our governments understand that this is something that we have decided is important. It's important to our economic vitality, and it's just important to the quality of the place where we live. Long term, the most important thing that will impact Burns & Mac, my future as the CEO of Burns & McDonnell, is how good's the next new grad I hire. So the most important thing that can happen to us long term is that the next new grad is a great kid ready to go.
And I'm hearing concerns even now from employers about going forward, because it is all about talent. It's all about talent retention and talent attraction. And yes, there are concerns about availability of qualified workforce going forward, no question about it. I have a firm conviction that successful communities and successful states invest in basic infrastructure. And basic infrastructure can mean a lot of things, but for me it means education and transportation. There's nothing more important for a state or a community to do than invest in education and transportation. It's the best thing we can do for economic development. The jobs that are open and the job skills we need, and whether or not they match with that educational attainment. So yes, I think that is a real concern, and I think business then has a responsibility to be very much aligned with education to make sure, again, that talent is going to be there. It's their workforce of tomorrow. It's the talent. And again, I know I repeat myself, but it is all about talent. Those employers, those businesses that will be successful tomorrow, those communities that will be successful tomorrow, those states who will be successful tomorrow have figured out the talent game, both in terms of retaining and attracting quality talent. So the engagement had better be there because it's the workforce of tomorrow. No, I don't think the state of Missouri is doing enough to invest in higher education, and it's not unique to Missouri. A lot of states have lessened their support for higher education in these tougher economic times. But I view state investment in higher education as the most important thing the state could do for economic development. So the affordability index of higher education is a very big concern. I think our organization is firmly committed to the importance, the value of higher education. We're blessed to have 16 institutions of higher education in our community. Some 50,000 college university students call Springfield home. We understand higher education and its importance to economic development. I think the Missouri Higher Education Partnership needs to focus on three things: research, education, and advocacy. There is not a statewide organization that is an ambassador or an advocate group for the importance and the value of higher education. So in my opinion, that's the number one need and priority. If you want your community to be successful tomorrow, if you want to have a job tomorrow, you better invest in education today. Those communities who will be successful tomorrow are those communities who have figured out, I would call the talent game. That is, the ability to retain and attract talent, because that's what's going to separate communities and frankly our country from the rest of the world, is our ability to compete on this global marketplace. It's all going to be about talent, and there's nothing more important than to invest in education. But I do believe the investment in education today pays dividends to a state or to municipal government in terms of increased tax base, no question about it.
So an organization like BJC recruits people from across the entire educational spectrum. About 70% of all of the people who work at BJC need to have some advanced education beyond high school. And when we do experience difficulty in recruiting people, the existing staff have to either work overtime or extended hours, or we have to modify workflows in order to accommodate to the employees that we are able to recruit. We struggle to recruit sometimes in the information technologies, in the clinical engineering and equipment maintenance positions. We sometimes experience difficulty in recruiting into some of the advanced therapeutics or technologies. And because these are highly skilled individuals who not only do we need to recruit people who have the educational background, but they also have to have relevant experience. So if people can advance their skills, advance their education, they have economic opportunity, and we have a more highly professional workforce. What we need to do is make sure that within the educational pipeline, there is an adequate number of people who can fill the jobs for which we are recruiting. I think that one of the things we learned from the recession was that if you had a college degree, it might have been difficult to find a job, but you were 3 times more likely to be unemployed if you didn't have a college degree than if you did. And we know that the median household income for people who only finished high school is about $30,000 a year. If you have a college degree, it's about $50,000 a year. And if you have an advanced degree, it's about $80,000 a year. So clearly there's a correlation between education and income and between education and employment opportunity. After high school, we have to make a college education affordable for every family. And employers, organizations like BJC, really do need to be heavily invested in promoting education, supporting the education systems that we have in our state, and encouraging people to use them. Making education a priority is important from so many different perspectives. We know that in order to compete in a more globalized economy, we need to have a highly educated, highly skilled, highly trained workforce. Government resources are limited. And so it becomes important that education rise to the top of the priority queue.
And we see tremendous growth in healthcare. Many, particularly the entry-level jobs, those that don't require the academic preparation, people simply weren't qualified. There were times when we didn't have near enough applicants for our nursing positions, not enough in pharmacy and lab. You could go to almost any clinical service and find that you couldn't have enough qualified applicants. There is a growing recognition about the need for that integration between healthcare and higher ed. If the question is, are we doing enough, the answer is no. Whether it's business and industry, whether it's the universities, or whether it's government. The answer is no, we're not doing enough. We've got to really step up our game here. The higher ed system can't do it without our support. It's just not possible. We cannot leave it up to one sector. We're all in on, we have to be all in for this to work. My first responsibility as a Missourian is to make sure that our institutions are taken care of, that we're training adequate numbers of teachers, that we're nurses, doctors, engineers, whatever it is. The amount of money that's been coming from general revenue to higher ed has declined dramatically. What policymakers are hearing from business leaders and sector leaders, whether it's education, whatever, is that we don't have an adequate number of graduates of all kinds, and they're not coming as prepared as they need to be, and somebody's got to do something. There is no stronger partnership that could exist in our state to help resolve that than a partnership between the higher ed community and the business community. Business has so much at stake, and they simply have to, as a business leader, have to accept the fact that we're in a different time, and it now requires them to step up in a different way and think about what it takes to support the education system, the higher education system, to get at the results we want. We as business leaders have to communicate to our employees and to our constituents and to our community the value of this engagement between business and education at all levels. This is a Manhattan Project kind of deal. It's that serious in my view. I would say that the CEOs have to basically help persuade themselves, their colleagues, and people around them that this is something as a society we have to do much better, and we're going to step up as a business leader and help in that. Business leaders have a unique position in society. We all know that business is the engine that keeps our country going. That's it.